Hi folks, well I'm here again doing another lesson from my book here, Complete Scale and Chord Theory for Guitar, and which is available on Amazon. And my thought was to put these up so my students can kind of look at some of these things at home and save some lesson time, but these may be of help to some general guitar playing skills out there for you people. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to start with the page 1 exercises, the dreaded page 1 exercises that all of my intermediate and advanced students are familiar with. And what we're going to do here is learn the major scale. And we're going to spend a lot of time looking at the ins and outs of the technique and theory behind it. So in the intro of the book, which I ask all my students to read the week before we do this, we talk about how the major scale is the basic unit of reference in Western music, and all music theory is explained in terms of relationships to the major scale. So when we say that something is a major chord or a minor chord or a seventh chord or a Dorian mode, in the back of our minds we're always making a comparison from what we mean, what we're talking about, to the major scale. So a major chord would be the root third and fifth, or a Dorian mode would be the major scale with a flat 3 and 7 or whatever. But it's always important to know that we're talking about the relationship to the major scale. So therefore it makes sense on whatever instrument you're playing to learn all the major scales. And on the guitar, we're going to focus on two things, and I talk about this again in the intro. In my experience as a guitar player, to be able to play things quickly at an advanced level, you need to be able to do two things. One is to be able to play any idea that you have, or any chord, riff, whatever, in one key anywhere on the neck, or to stay in one spot and play it in any key. So for instance, if I have a little riff, a little country riff, I'll demonstrate later this same riff and how I apply this system to it. If I have a little major riff that goes like this in the key of A, I should be able to play this anywhere on the guitar in the key of A. And so on. And then I also should be able to stay in one spot and play it in any key. So I'll stay in the 5th fret and play it in A, in D, in G, and so on, in C, And both skills are important. In rock and blues, you tend to play in one key all over the neck, and in jazz, you tend to play in every key everywhere on the neck. So jazz is definitely a little bit more intensive, but in blues, you could do the same thing too, and a lot of advanced blues players, guys like Robin Ford or whatever, will use all of this information in a blues setting as well. Something I like to do. So let's get started. So the first thing we do is we focus on our technique. And I explain to students that the technique is the most important thing, because you can have all of the knowledge in this book and not be able to play a note. Or you could know a very small amount of stuff and play it very well and sound good in your realm, in whatever genre you're playing in. So we're going to start with what I call in the book here. You'll see there's 7 scales on the left page, page 1. And these are all in the key of A in the various positions of the guitar. I'm going to start with this one, scale 2. Because it's kind of overlaps the root and 6 bar chord, and it seems to be a scale that a lot of people already know coming in, and normally we just clean up that, and then what we're going to do is we're going to apply all of the stuff we do on scale 2 to the other 7 scales. So today I'll mostly be demonstrating what to do with scale 2, and then on your own you can do it on the other 6 scales, and it should be pretty easy. So the first thing we do is we practice with a metronome. I don't care how long you've been playing, the tendency is always to speed up easy parts, slow down hard parts. And in the practice tips on the previous page, that's practice tip number 1. And we're going to see a lot of uses of the metronome as we go on. But I have mine set at 80, and this scale is in the key of A, starting with finger 2 on A on string 6. And what we're going to do, you'll see all of the scales, the roots are circled, even if it's not the lowest note in the scale. So we always begin on the root, play all the way up to the highest note of the scale, come back to the root, play whatever notes are below it, and work our way back to the root. So we're covering all of the notes in every position, beginning and ending on the root. And the reason why you want to begin and end on the root instead of, say, the second or third or whatever, is because then it's going to sound like a mode, which is another scale. So we're going to begin and end on the root and practice alternate picking. And I'm going to start with finger 2 on A. And you can start, if the left hand is new to you, start with just doing downstrokes. So I have my metronome at 80. You can start as slow as you need to go. I'm going to turn this around. It's a very loud metronome. And I'm going to play with just downstrokes, doing the left hand fingering. As you get better at this, you want to add alternate picking, down and up. Now, a lot of times students think they're doing alternate picking, but they're not. So what you want to do, if this is new to you, is say out loud as you're doing it, down, up, down, up. Normally, the places where people mess up is when it goes from a down on one string to an up on the next string. So here I go down, up, down, up, down, up. And what I see a lot is down, up, down, up, down, down, which is a different system, and it's pretty valid. I've seen Joe talk about that. But then every scale is different, and I think for the first time out, and for a lot of things I do later, mixing this stuff with chords, and as maybe you've seen in the blues video, I think it's a good idea to initially learn by keeping your hand moving with the beat. This way it's one way for every scale. Now, once you get that down and you have your technique, you're playing in time with alternate picking, every note is clear and you're going well. The next thing is exercise 1A, to learn the degrees. And we just number the notes of the scale from 1 through 8, or root to root. And that exercise would be this. You take the scale, you can turn the metronome off for this, and you go root, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, root, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, root, 2, root, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, root, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, root, 7, root. It's important to know those numbers, so test yourself, randomly. Where are the roots? Where are the fifths? Where are the seconds? And be able to pick those out without having to play up and down the scale. So that may take some students a week, 2 weeks, just to get comfortable with that and, learn how to play with the metronome, listening to the metronome as they play. The next part is exercise 1B. With each of the 7 major scales, play the arpeggios. And you'll see on the following page, right here, there's a list of chords. You see that? List of chords and the separate arpeggios. And the first one we start with is the major arpeggio. That's the root, third, and fifth notes of the major scale. So now I go through the scale. I'll have students go through it and pick out the root, the third, the fifth, the root, third, fifth, root, and backwards. Root, fifth, third, we learned how to sweep pick the arpeggios. So we learned the two main ways of picking on guitar, alternate picking and sweep picking. And so these, the sweep pick is very simple in concept. You do all downs when you ascend, all ups when you ascend. If I'm going slow, if there's a second note on the string, I reverse the pick. If I'm going fast, I hammer and pull. So if I'm going slow, it's going to look like this. Down, down, up, and then all downs, and then all ups, a down, and an up. So it looks like this. If I'm going fast, I hammer and pull. Down, down, hammer. Ups, pull off. Right? And that's pretty much sweep picking in a nutshell. The main thing to remember is to keep the pick in contact from string to string. Don't pull it away. That's not a sweep. So here, it's a rest stroke. And now I'm on string 5 for the next note. Same thing going backwards. It's a drag, you know. So now you get the scale and the arpeggio. And if you look on page 42, I listed all of these arpeggios. But again, you want to do the work yourself and just use those to check fingerings and make sure you have it right. Or, excuse me, or maybe you didn't overlook a fingering. Now from there, there's the other arpeggios, the major 7, root 3, 5, 7, the 7th, minor, minor 7th, minor 7, flat 5, and diminished, and you want to do the same thing with all of those. So I do, you know, major 7, root 3, 5, 7. Again, always starting from the root. Root 3, 5, 7. Root 3, 5, flat 7 for the dominant. And so on. But I actually got ahead of myself and skipped a step. The next thing I have students do with that root 3rd and 5th that they found is to start learning how to form their own chords, which is usually important. A lot of times I'll get students come in and for the first lesson they've been playing a while and I'll just name chords and they'll play them, and then inevitably I'll get to a chord and I'll say, you know, A major 7th, and I'll get something like this. You know, is it this one? Is it this one? Is it this one? And they're playing all these chords, and what that's showing me is they've memorized names and shapes, but they're not looking at it from a base of knowledge. So obviously there's a lot of chords, a lot of inversions, a lot of way to find everything on the guitar. You don't want to depend on rote memorization. So the exercise would be this. We take the root 3rd, 5th, and then exercise 1C here. How many ways can you simultaneously play the root 3rd and 5th in that scale shape? So I can go root 3rd. I can't play the 5th because it's on the same string, but I can put it on string 2. Root 3rd, 5th. And I have to pluck these to separate them, right? That's an A chord. You may recognize that as a G shape, right? So now you'd be learning shapes you already know, but why they're the chords they are. Or I can go root 5th, 3rd, right? Or I can go root 3rd, 5th. I can go 3rd, root 5th, or 3rd, 5th, root. I can go 5th, root 3rd, that's your E shape. Root 3rd, 5th. 5th, or I'm sorry, 3rd, root, 3rd, 5th, root. These are all A chords. I can skip, you know, 5th, 3rd, root. So now, and I can look at my A bar chord now and see that this is a root, 5th, root, 3rd, 5th, root. So now I could take any of those triads and add a 7 to make it a 7 chord, or I could add flat the 3rd and make it a minor chord. And if I do this with all 7 scales, now I can find any chord that I need in the key of A at this point anywhere on the guitar. Now I should point out that these are ongoing, I don't tell students this is all we're going to do for, 6 months. In addition to all the other stuff we're doing, this page 1 stuff is exercises that I hope they're doing at home, and I really don't have to check it every week. It's just ongoing. Once they know what to do with scale 2, they could do it with all the other scales. So now the whole page up to this level, I'm going to go through each of the 7 scales with alternate picking back and forth, beginning and ending on the root, and then play the root, 3rd, 5th. And that's the first level of what I ask my students to do with this page. So hopefully for them, it'll be a way to do it at home without having to spend lesson time. And for any of you at home, this may be a new or different way of looking at the guitar, a way to fill in some gaps, clean up your technique, whatever you can get out of it. So again, I'm going to set my metronome for 80. And here we go. I'm going to just start with scale 1, finger 4 on A, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to do 8th notes, by the way, to kind of keep it going a little faster. So I'm going to do 2 notes per click, down and up. 2, 3, 4. And then root, 3rd, 5th. Scale 2, I'll do again. Scale 3, finger 1. Scale 4, finger 1 on string 4, fret 7 is the lowest A here. And again. Don't forget to find, 3rd, 5th root and root, 3rd, 5th and chords. Scale 5, I believe, finger 4 on A on fret 12. Finger 2 on that, scale 6. Finger 1, scale 7. Now I could do the octave on this guitar of scale 1, shift the guitar a little, and I can get up to the 2nd octave here. I don't have a strap. I'm going to do it this way. Alright, scale 2 again on fret 17. And practice these high frets. You gotta get used to the spacing. And then finger 1, scale 3 again, right? if you have a 24 fret guitar, you might be able to do scale 4 again. Okay, and then again, don't forget on each of those to see how many ways you could simultaneously find the root third fifth. So if I have scale 1, root third fifth, here's a couple of chords. Root 3 5, 3 5 root, fifth root third. There's your A shape. Right? Then I can do you know, third root fifth, skipping strings. Those are called open voicings, or root fifth third. There's a Bach song that starts like that, right? Like that. And so on, you know, and this will help later on in the book. We work on major and minor triads up and down the neck. And this is really important to be able to know, let's say, all the inversions of an A triad up and down the guitar. This is all the root third and fifths of A, played in closed voicings. And I would need those for simple chord melodies. You know, if I was playing, let's say, a song like Three Blind Mice as a chord melody, you know, I would need to know, let's say the song is in G, and you're going third, fifth, third, 2, root, and then 5, 4, 3. So I could put the top note, basic chord melody, third on the top of a G chord, second root, fifth on top. These 3 chords are different inversions of G triads, and at that point I would need to know the number and the letter, you know. And on a realistic, you know, note, I might play this on, I think I uploaded somewhere back there a version of Crazy, where I use a lot of triads, right? So I'm doing, this is all a C chord, all an A chord, D minor. And these are all inversions that I would need, you know, to know instantly using these major scales. Another thing I would do is, as I showed earlier, let's say I have a riff, and this is where it's really important for rock players or blues or jazz players who solo a lot to be able to do this. Let's go back to that first riff I played from scale 1. If I analyze that by the degrees, I'm going root, second, flat third, hammering onto the third, fifth, sixth, fifth, root, root, second, third, fifth, sixth, fifth, root. So now from any A, I should be able to find that riff using the underlying major scale and the intervals from it. So from the second root of the scale, A, root, second, slide into my third, fifth, sixth, fifth, root. Right? Scale 2. Scale 3. Or scale 4. 5. Scale 6. Scale 7. And then I can stay in one key, take it through the cycle. So let's say I start on fret 8 with C. C, scale 2. F. B flat. E flat. A flat. And so on. So now that's the second part of what I talk about in the intro, being able to play anything you know in one key anywhere on the neck, or in any spot on the neck in any key. And the major scale is the way to learn how to do that. Okay, so now using that information and that system, I should be able to find any riff in any key anywhere on the guitar, just by knowing my major scales and knowing my numbers and being able to assign each note of the riff a degree. So even if it's a very complex, or even especially if it's a very complicated riff, sometimes you might not be able to hear it until you really have played it a lot of times, and then you know it. So those first 10, 20, 30 times, you may be just doing it by intervals until you start to hear what it's supposed to sound like. And that's a way to make sure you really have it down. Now the next exercise that we do from here is the cycle of fourths, which is underneath that. And basically what we do now is we go position by position, and we do the same series of exercises, but staying in one spot of the neck, doing it through all the keys. So for instance, if I start here around fret 3, the kind of general rule I give my students is you can only go plus or minus 1 fret from where you start. So if I go through the cycle, I'm going to just do the major scale and the root third fifth, and then obviously you can do all of the other exercises in the cycle as well, the riffs and the chords. So scale 1, or the first scaled C would be actually scale 7, finger 1 on C. And then root third fifth. F. Scale 4. B flat would be scale 1. E flat, scale number 5. And you'd want to do these with the metronome, you know, I'm just demonstrating, but A flat, scale 2. Oops. I flatted the 7, let's try it. D flat, scale 6. That's the one. F sharp, scale 3, which I'd go back a fret and play with finger 1. Anyway, you get the idea. You know, the rest of the cycle goes B, E, A, D, G, and you want to find the scales. Go through the arpeggios, all of the arpeggios. You know, do this major 7th arpeggio. So if I go back to scale 2, the major 7th arpeggio would be root 3, 5, 7. And then you'd extract, you know, some chords. Root 5, 7, 3. Or root 3, 5, 7. Right? Root 3, 5, 7. Or 5th, 7, 3, root. And these are all A major 7 chords. 7, 3, 5, root. So once you do this with all 7 scales and all 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of the basic chords, you know the neck pretty well. And if you've been doing your alternate picking and your sweep picking, you got some technique too, you know, and this will open up a lot of freedom on the guitar for being able to find what you want when you want it. So this is the page 1 exercises. I do this with all of my students when we start bar chords pretty much. And it's an ongoing thing, and you want to take it one step at a time. Perfect each scale, perfect the arpeggio, perfect the sweep. Then go on to the next scale till you have all 7. Find some triads, some chords, and you'll find as you do this, the things you already play, you'll be looking at differently from a base of knowledge instead of rote memorization. And I think that's probably the most important thing I could give to students, is the ability to teach themselves, to play something, understand it, be able to transpose it, do it in other positions, other keys. to hear something, be able to identify what it is, and be able to find it quickly without a lot of hunting around to the point where you lose, track of what you were originally trying to do. So hope that helps, folks. And again, this is available on Amazon. Complete Scale and Chord Theory for Guitar by me. The proceeds go to my favorite charity, which is the Joe+livoti Surfing Fund. So every time you buy a book, I'm that much closer to getting out to Pacifica and catching some waves. So thanks a lot, folks, and happy playing.